to this episode of Ground Speak. My name is Ashani Jaiswal, and today I'm joined by Subhadika Debavarma, who's going to tell us about her venture, which is an e-commerce platform called Tripura Guiding. So let me just tell you a little bit about Groundspeak. Groundspeak is a platform for those voices who primarily remain unheard and uncalled for, and hence it seeks to bring out a bottom-up narrative and establish a new normal wherein the realities of the ground become the fundamental base for discussions and deliberations on grander stages. Through Groundspeak, Asian Confluence wants to acknowledge the situation and the status of these individuals who make up such a large part of our community. So, Subhadika, could you tell us more about you and your venture and how did you come upon this idea?
Yes, sure. Hello, I'm Subedika and I'm a resident of Agartala. That's the capital city of Tripura, a northeastern province. I'm currently a computer science undergraduate student at a Canadian institution called Memorial University of Newfoundland. And I'm also a sciences researcher. Basically, when I was 15 years old, I traveled to a lot of places, including Mumbai. And what I noticed is that people there weren't even aware that Northeast was even part of India, let alone being aware about our culture and our rich traditional heritage. So that kind of evoked in me a sense of sadness. And then my ideas kept getting fine-tuned throughout the years, and so here I am now. I have already registered my startup, which is called Tipra Gairing. So that basically is in my mother tongue, Kokborok. So Tipra basically stands for Tripura and Gairing stands for cottage. So what I basically aim to do is partner with small scale businesses in my area, and then launch their products on an e-commerce platform so that they can showcase their work to a wider audience. I have seen how COVID has changed the courses of most of the businesses, and many of them are so worst hit that they didn't even see any sales in the past few months. So yeah, that is where I come, and I want to stand by my people, help them out, and later on, when I meet my target revenue for my first financial year, I want to expand and develop research and development units, and start developing language translation products and stuff like that.
Right. It sounds like a
Yeah.
really noble venture, and I'm so glad that young people from the Northeast are taking it upon themselves to try and reinvigorate the region and try to be there for their people as well. So I'm really glad to hear that, Sujavika. So
Thank you.
considering that you're a new person here in the business landscape of Northeast,
Yeah.
you've grown up here. So how would you describe like the current scenario of business in your region, and what are some of the biggest advantages of doing the business out of the Northeast?
I think the idea of selling online, basically this e-commerce platforms and stuff is pretty new here. So I think that's a major perk, I would say, because I do not have many direct competitors in the region yet, and I
Right.
also get yeah, and I also get to help my people stand by their side, because this entire concept of selling online, reaching out to a wider audience, is completely new to them. Many don't even know then that their businesses can even go global at some point. So yeah, I think that's the major perk. So the current scenario, I think it's still in the development stage, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem is rapidly developing in my area. So yeah, we have a long way to go.
A long way to go. Also, I think um, handicraft and weaving is a part of a lot of people in the Northeast. It's a part of their culture, right? But
Yeah,
also
yeah, yeah,
it
exactly.
gets it's just limited to this particular region, and their products just never reach to a national scale or even an international scale. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that way I think the e-commerce platform is really going to help some of these products come to light. So what are some of the products you want to showcase on your platform?
We have a lot of handicrafts and bamboo products, wall hangings and stuff like that. We also have products for daily use like bamboo bottles, baskets, pen stands, pencil cases. Yeah, so that's how I'll be launching my products, and then at a later stage, of course, yeah, I have plans on expanding.
So what I'm
You
trying
know,
to say is that a lot
yeah.
of the products that you're selling,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's all bamboo based and
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
natural fibers. So
Yeah.
how does the market stand on sustainable products? And do you think that your products are somewhere going to be a replacement for single-use plastics and things like that, which pollute
Oh
the
yes.
environment?
Oh yes, absolutely. I feel my products are eco-friendly enough. And then there are also products, that do not really exist, but I do plan on bringing them as well. So yeah, I do plan on replacing most of the plastic products that are in use. So starting with bamboo bottles, plates, cups, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I have heard about bamboo plates and bamboo glasses. Bamboo bottles is something that's completely new, and I've personally never
Okay.
heard about it. It sounds really interesting. So let's
Yeah,
get
it
to
has
the
recently
hurdles.
been launched here.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's get to some of the hurdles. What are some of the major hurdles? For example, access to finance, markets, mentors, and even infrastructure for women doing business in the Northeast.
I think a major hurdle that I faced is mentorship. I didn't find any guidance here, like who would say, yeah, this is how you go, this is how you proceed, this is the first step you should take. So, yeah, I think mentorship is something that we still lack here in the Northeast. The other thing is bringing in potential investors. So, like, I think the Northeastern states can collectively come together and then, offer solutions to this, like how we can, bring in more investors, how to make the Northeastern market more appealing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
And I
these are
think
two of the major hurdles I faced.
definitely, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the problem also because of the virtue of the Northeast not having a lot of development in terms of transportation and even connectivity issues. What tends to happen is that it gets cut off from the
Mainland
major
India.
cities
Yeah.
from the mainland India.
Yeah.
So increasingly, what we've seen in COVID is that everything
Yeah.
is online now,
Yeah.
and I think this is a very good opportunity for the Northeast to take it in their stride and try to get everything as much as whatever they can online, because this I have personally seen with a lot of the women entrepreneurs that we are working with at all, is that they've taken it in stride, and a lot of people are benefiting from it, like doing entirely their entire business online. So I think it's definitely
Yeah.
going to
COVID.
be
Yeah.
interesting
COVID
how
is
the
in
next.
some way a boon.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to see in the next 10 years as to what the business landscape is going to look like in the Northeast. Maybe COVID is the one thing that's definitely going to encourage and push some change in the way that the business is done in Northeast. So how many have you started your platform yet? Have you had a chance to talk to handicraft owners and people who are artisans? Have you had a chance to talk to these people?
Oh yes, I have already collaborated, like spoken to many local businesses here, like 15 to 20, and they found the idea really interesting because they haven't seen a single customer in the past few months. So
Mm-hmm.
like I went to them, I discussed with them, I told them about my venture and how they are going to benefit from it. So they found it really interesting. So they came forward. So they're willing to help. I haven't begun sales yet, just a few formalities, so yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I expect to begin sales soon. So yeah, it's
What are
going
some of
pretty well
the
so far.
interesting instances you can tell us about from your work on the ground when you had a
uh
conversation with these people?
Yeah, like many didn't even know that this like such platforms exist, because some of the wholesalers here, what they do is they just export some products in bulk, when they get orders and stuff, but they haven't really like went their way out to explore if they can like register on platforms like Flipkart or Amazon, and try to sell their products. So I think this was something entirely new to them. So even like most of the stuff about bamboo and handicrafts I didn't know about earlier, so I got to learn a lot, like the
Got to
bottle
learn a
thing.
lot.
Yeah, so the bottle thing I didn't know like it even existed. I just knew that okay, cups existed, plates existed, okay fine, let's start with them. But then when I went, so they showed me the bottles and said, yeah, this is something we have been designing since December. So yeah, if you could have a look. So I just went and I saw them like making the bottles and stuff. So yeah, ground speaking to the artisans directly was really fun.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I suppose those people must be also really excited and really hopeful that
Yeah,
there's something completely new and somebody is going out of their way to try to make it possible for these people to have some sort of a livelihood. So I'm really glad you're doing that. Um,
thank you.
so, right. So, what are some of the livelihood generation activities that your business is doing, and are you employing women in your venture?
Yeah, like most of the artisans I spoke to were women, so this is something that really made me happy. And the women were more proactive than men, like when I went to speak, so I saw the
Right.
enthusiasm, it was clearly visible. So yeah, in terms of livelihood generation, I think someone who hasn't seen any income in the past few months, they can now rely on someone for a secure means of income. So I think that thought in itself makes me happy.
Yeah, and I hope that women can definitely benefit from this because um, women and children have been the hardest hit in terms of the pandemic. Obviously, the older
Yeah,
population as well, but it's the women because um, it's their source of independence, right? And when the independence, when the extra income just goes away, you're supposed to rely on your family for everything, and that's an interest, that's a whole other dynamic that needs to be explored, and what it's been like for women to go through the COVID-19 pandemic. And which brings me to my next question. So, how has COVID-19 affected your business? And in the light of COVID-19, what are some of the changes that you would like to see in the way that the business community currently functions in the Northeast?
I would consider COVID-19 a boon for my business, to be honest. Because most of the stuff has moved online, and then people here haven't seen any sales. I went, I spoke to them, and I saw like how sad they were. Like they were having a hard time, feeding their families and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that way I think my business can help. So yeah, the COVID has been a good thing for me. Regarding business, I think the businesses that are online, they have benefited at large. um, and regarding businesses in the Northeast, yeah, I think like most of the ones that are particularly doing e-commerce stuff, like I know a few of them.
Right.
I think the physical stores badly hit, because people barely went out of their homes, let alone go for shopping.
Hmm.
So yeah, and regarding women, I think the scenario was pretty much same pre-COVID. you know like being a woman, what I feel is, we encourage women less, and then sometimes most women tend to feel inferior when it and I think families should come in support, like uh, if I take my example, like I had a lot of support from my family, my friends. So then like I didn't have to reconsider much my choices. I had this firm belief in myself that I can do it. So I think for women, nothing changes pre-COVID, post-COVID. I think it's the same thing, we are encouraged really less. And then, some people, they often try gaslighting women. So I think that's something that needs to be stopped.
For sure. And
Yeah.
it's COVID, I think, more so regressed our society into going back to, like, really old times where the woman is then again restricted to her household. The one thing that she could do where she could find a little bit of source of independence was through
Mm-hmm.
some even very little work that she was getting outside, and that just went away. And I think that's had a very bad 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 exposure to a lot of women. And I'm so glad that you said that it's the position of the woman just never changes. And there needs to be proactive efforts from not just the government but like us as a society as well, to try and make sure that women are, if not given equal opportunities, are given more so than men, so that how affirmative action works, right? So what are some of the policies and schemes and interventions that you would like to see from the government and from the private sector for women entrepreneurs in the Northeast?
The government, has already a lot of schemes regarding entrepreneurship and stuff. It's just that most of us don't know about them because they are
Right.
advertised less. So I think that's where the government should work more. Like when I first set my foot into entrepreneurship, I didn't even know about like the schemes that I can take advantage of. Like there are so many central government schemes for startups run by women entrepreneurs. Then I joined awe and I got to learn a lot, so thanks to the amazing community of awe. Yeah, so I think the government should take more efforts in advertising their schemes more, so that they reach the right people at the right time,
Right, right.
so that you can mitigate the chances of missing potential opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Regarding the private sector, I think they should come up with more investment schemes and stuff like that, accelerator programs, networking events, where uh, like women only networking events where they bring in investors, and then we go in, we can communicate, and then so they can come forward and make interstate collaborations reality, and then build a strong network of women entrepreneurs, so that we can support each other, you know.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
with these overarching large schemes such as Startup India, Make in India,
Hmm.
Atmanirbhar Bharat,
Yeah.
these really really these are very nice words. They sound really nice when you say them,
Yeah,
but there is a lack in terms of the implementation, and especially
exactly.
region wise, where regions such as Bombay or Delhi, or even Calcutta for that matter, get
Hmm.
more scrutiny
Exactly.
than areas such as the northeast, the south, or even if you go a little above Delhi, which is like Kashmir and all,
Hmm.
there is just no scope there. So it's definitely we've taken a step there. I wouldn't go so far as to negate the entire scheme that the central government has come up with, but there needs to be better implementation of these programs, and I completely agree with you. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
this, yeah, and it's just so interesting to see, because handicraft and weaving and textile production, it's a part of a lot of northeastern tribes' cultures, right? And it's
Yeah.
so inherent to their cultures, and none of this just ever makes it to a national level where everybody knows about Banarsi silk sarees, right? But nobody really knows about the textile weaving that takes place in Assam, sure. But even in Meghalaya, for that matter, and Manipur as well. So there needs to be more proactive effort from both the
Mm-hmm.
government and the private sectors to try and promote some of these entrepreneurs and some of these cultures, because these cultures are then eventually going to die out, because that's what happens, right? Like um, the nobody essentially wants their kids to come back and then settle there, because there's no scope for their indigenous cultures and in how they can make money off of it. So it becomes a very
Yeah.
cultural thing in the sense that
I
it
think it's
shows that
I think it's also the responsibility of the schools here, like to integrate the cultural education in their, school systems, and then like make them aware like how they can use it to their advantage and stuff like that. Like you mentioned, coming back to your roots and then making money out of it. So I think this is something that needs to be nurtured from a tender age.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And not just of a tender age, and this is it's just really sad to see that there are certain cultures that are vanishing right now. There are some cultures that
Exactly.
are vanishing because by the virtue of people going out of their states to study and just never coming back there to settle, and it's
Yeah.
a pretty sad scenario there. But
Hmm.
so Subrika, I've taken up a lot of your time. With this, I think we come to the end of our interview. But if there's anything else you would like to talk about before we take our leave, be my guest.
No, I really enjoyed the session a lot. Thanks for inviting me to the Groundspeak interview series. And yeah, I hope to continue my program. Yeah.
Yeah, we hope so too, and we at Asian Confluence are extremely proud to be associated with you and young people like you who are going out of their way to make sure that the Northeast flourishes. Thank you so much, Subhadika, for joining us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.